What's it called? What's the channel called?
Journals and Journeys.
Hanging out at Journals and Journeys.
Hi, welcome to Journals and Journeys, or the other way around.
Let me actually press the record button. But anyway, yes, I thought for the occasion I shall dress up with the shirt. I love it.
Wicked. I love it.
One of my favorite merch shirts, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the call. I genuinely
Don't make me cry. We just started.
so soft, like for real. This is probably like quality-wise the nicest merch shirt I have.
I spent a lot of time like literally reading it's not, what's the word? It's not ingredients. I looked at what they make the shirts with on like dozens of shirts to find the softest one. So every time someone says that, I feel really happy because I worked really hard to make sure they were soft.
So true. Like literally, you should have seen me when I opened the package, because first of all, it was a pain getting it here because I ordered it together with Parant and Kim.
Yeah, that's right.
So like it all shipped to Kim's house, but then for some reason she tried shipping the shirts out to Parant and me like 5 times, and they always came back to her. It took like weeks, and like Parant and I were always like, we want our shirts too, because Kim was like, oh yeah, it's so soft. And then it arrived in the mail, and it was just like this package wrapped in a lot of just like gaffer tape, because she taped it shut to like the max. And then I opened it, I took out the shirt, and I was like, oh, it's so soft.
Sweet. I love it. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
You look cold.
It's not actually that cold,
But
so what happened? Well, I wouldn't say it's hot either. So it's starting to feel like fall in California, but like, what would you consider cold weather?
cold weather. Well, if I hit you with degrees Celsius now, you're just gonna look at me.
That's fair. I'm gonna be really confused. Well, anyway, I live in Southern California most of the time,
Yeah.
where it's always like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know Celsius, but it's always like really hot. And so now I'm here. It's like 15 degrees less than what it normally is, but I'm freezing. And so I have to wear like a coat and a beanie, and I'm super cold, and it's not cold. So
But inside, really? I mean,
I'm weak now. It's just what happens, I guess. Very
Yeah.
true though.
fair enough. But yeah, what have you been getting up to today so far?
So far I've woken up.
Literally?
That's all I've done.
But don't tell me you had to set an alarm just for this call, because then I would feel bad.
It's fine. I should wake up by 10 a.m. most days anyway. Like that's later than most people wake up, so it's totally fine. But yeah, I did have to set an alarm.
Oh my god, now I feel bad. Like
No, it's totally fine.
Saturday.
It's totally fine. Most people are awake by 10 a.m. So it was a realistic time for sure.
I actually tried to sleep in this morning because I was like, okay, I'll just sleep till like 9 or like 10, because I usually wake up a lot earlier. And then I woke up at 7:15, and my body was like, okay, we're awake now. Let's get up. I was like, no.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ouch.
but that's okay. But I'm so happy we can finally make this work. It like took a long time because life is busy. I mean, life is busy.
Oh yeah.
You're like always doing stuff. Like whenever people are like, oh, I have so much to do, I was like, you should know there's like this guy over in the States. His name is Daniel Sherman, and he has like a bazillion projects he's running at the exact same time, and I don't know how he's still alive.
I don't know how I'm still alive either, to be honest. It's there's 4 projects right now. There's the season series. There's Crown and Chains. I should say Crown and Chains first. There's Crown and Chains. There's the season series. There's the project with Giovanni, and then there is Uncaged, which is still coming. I haven't talked about it in a while, but it is still coming. And I have all 4 of them have releases coming super soon. So we're going to be hitting, I think there will be one release from each of them except Crowned and Chains by the end of 2020. So it's kind of crazy juggling all 4 because each one's a different producer or a different workflow, different storyline, because I do storylines for some reason. I don't know why I did that. It's hard sometimes.
But
and it's
cool,
crazy
cool
switching
though.
around and bouncing around. It's like a mindset shift I have to do. So, but also it's kind of fun.
Keeps you on your toes.
That's for sure. Yeah, definitely does.
But I mean, since you have like all these projects, I mean, like this is basically the perfect introduction you've just done as well, because like we're going to be talking about all of your projects. So
Yeah.
you've given like a really nice overview just now. But is there any particular project you would like to start with that you're particularly eager to get off your chest first?
Ooh. Oh man. No pressure. Um, let's go in order. Let's start with Crown and Chains. That's where I started. So
Let's start with Crown and Chains then. So for anyone that's not heard of Crown and Chains, like first of all, rude, how dare they? And second of all, give us a little heads up, like a little Crown and Chains history. How did the whole thing start? Where are you guys at now?
yeah. So the band started, I should know this date off the top of my head. I think 4 years ago now. Time flies crazy, and we're in a quarantine, so that makes it weird too. I think 4 years ago. It actually started, my brother was graduated from college, and so we had a bunch of people over at the house for his graduation party. And me and a couple of my friends ditched his party early to go jam and play music. And so my buddy Jacob, who I'd played music with at my church for a long time, and then these two brothers, Ian and Tyler Craig, were all bored at my brother's graduation party, so we decided to leave. And they pulled out, Tyler pulled out a guitar, Jacob pulled out a guitar, Ian pulled out a piano, I sat behind the kit, and we wrote 3 songs that day. And those songs are the songs as Failure, The Moon, 4 songs, King Suffering, and Moving On were all written that day.
No way. What? That's
So
crazy.
at the end of the day, we're like, yo, we just wrote 4 songs. Like the next thing we need is a band name.
Album. That's like the beginning of King Suffering. Basically.
Yeah, well, so King Sufferings and Moving On they weren't fully written that day. King Suffering lyrically, I wrote 2 years prior to even that. So like lyrically, I had, by the time the band started, probably 40 songs written in my notes page. And so it was, I had the lyrics done, and then me and Jacob had actually met about King Suffering beforehand, and I literally sang to him, this is what I want the guitar to do. I'd go da 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 da, and then he'd be, oh, you mean like this? And I was like, yes. And we wrote the song like that. And so we had written it, we just hadn't played it with a full band, and then Moving On was Jacob's brainchild, and fully Jacob's brainchild. And so he showed us on guitar, and then the rest of us wrote our parts that day. And so it literally, that's the day it started. We ditched my brother's graduation party, and we wrote a bunch of songs and came up with a band name that night, which was Beyond the Broken. And that's not what we're called today.
No.
Because turns out there is another band called Beyond the Broken, from North Carolina, and they weren't happy with us, and they threatened us with lawyers, which, when you're a 15 or 16-year-old who literally just started writing songs with his friends, is kind of scary. So we, after like a 2-month existential crisis, we spent a lot of time just throwing out, like, literally, what words do we like? And I was like, I like the word shattered. I like the word, I do like shadow. Like, I threw out all these weird words, and then two of those words were crowned.
Dark and broken words.
Yeah, there's the word crowned and the word chains were 2 of the words I threw out. And then after, like, it was like this epiphany moment. I was like, oh, crowned in chains. And they were like, what does that even mean? And I was like, no, I got this. I said, and it really was. I'm so glad that we almost got sued over our first name, because I really like our new name. Crowned in chains is this idea. It's based on a passage from the Bible, actually, that says, it's James 1:12. And it says, when you persevere through trials, you receive the crown of righteousness, the crown of life. And that's like literally all our music's about. It's about getting through the hard stuff to be able to see the rewards that come after. And so that's where we get the crown from. The chains partially represent the trial, but they also represent another thing from the Bible, which is that Paul, Every time Paul starts a letter in the Bible, he describes himself as a slave for Christ. And the idea for that is that to get through those trials and to come out of it with reward, we have to be slaves to something beyond ourselves, a mission, some sort of purpose for us. And so it means becoming selfless and becoming a slave to something other than making your life about you. So that was where the name came from. And then after that, there's this group of people called the Peasantry who found our music online, literally because I did the thing everyone tells you not to do in the music industry.
Which
And
is
I DM'd a bunch of people to listen to my music, pretty please.
you can't slide in them DMs. That's not acceptable.
I did it, and it worked.
Oh shit!
And it worked.
You wrote
And
the book that paid off. Well, what does that teach our children?
oh, I'm sorry. Don't air this part. Don't show them. I did. I DM'd hundreds of people, and most of the time I'd get cussed out. Half the time, so I'd say if I was to spread it, if I sent 100 DMs, I would get 40 people cussing me out. I would get 30 saying I'll listen who didn't, and then I would get 10 who responded actually listened, and of those 10, one would follow. And I sent hundreds of DMs until there were a bunch of people who were listening. Then we released a couple singles from studio, which we had originally written this demos EP that was terrible. It was garbage. I don't think you can even find it on the internet anymore because we tried to erase it from existence. It was really bad. And if you listen to the song Letters, you hear me say, I rap about the demos. And I say, you thought it was cute. I recorded on a potato.
Yeah.
Because that's what it sounds like we did. But our friends and family and a few strangers even, they supported us through that demos EP. And we sold enough to afford a studio. And so we recorded Failure and King Suffering, released those as singles, got in the studio after those singles and recorded the record. And then really when we released that, that's pretty much where we're at today, is that through that album and through the Peasantry promoting it like crazy, staying with us through some weird times now in the pandemic. We're able to release music at an even higher quality than we did those. And we're just moving forward.
I mean, like for King Suffering Part 2, you've managed to amass quite the impressive amount of streams for the time it's been out. Like it has 11,000 or something. I checked on Spotify.
I give 100% full credit of that to our intern, Kim, who you know.
Oh,
Kim is amazing. And she would hate that I'm talking about her. So, of course, I'm going to do it. So Kim, I was playing video games with another band called Until Further Notice, which I stream Until Further Notice. They're brilliant. And I was streaming with them, and literally Kim made some joke about wanting, how did she word it? She made some joke about being an intern for one of the bands. And I literally put in the chat, DM me after this live stream. And I was like, how serious are you? Because we will make you an intern if you want to be. And she did. She became the intern, and she is seriously like, there's a lot of stuff that I used to do. And because I was doing like the behind the scenes stuff, like messaging blogs and magazines and trying to get Spotify placement and all those things. And I did them really bad because I was also doing a bunch of other things, right? Like the music part. And so Kim has totally just taken on those things that used to burn me out and make me like want to quit everything. And it has been amazing to A, get that off my chest, but B, it's getting done so much better now because she's doing it and it's awesome. So shout out to Kim.
Super dedicated to it as well. Like I was chatting to her the other day about it and like saying, you go, Kim. You got this.
She's killer. She's amazing. We all appreciate her a lot.
And I mean, that also gives you, like you said, time to just focus on the music side of things.
Yeah. I think if Kim hadn't become our intern, I think It's Still Us would probably be releasing like now instead of a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. And I think there's a whole lot of music you would never have gotten because I would have been just dead. I would have been so dead trying to do all this stuff. So
Because also,
she's
especially
responsible for the music.
socials, like as nice as social media is, but it can be quite draining.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you do still have like a lot of interaction with like the fan base, especially like with with like the little peasantry circle that we also have like group chat and stuff. Like you would still occasionally be there and say like hi and talk to people,
Yeah.
but it's just like not all the time, and just messaging people and being left unseen or getting no response whatsoever. But you can really focus on also building the story around Crown and Chains, because that's what you said, like it's also very lore driven. And to be honest, like at first when you come into the whole thing, I think it's almost a little bit overwhelming. Like it's super cool,
Yeah.
but it's like, whoa, there's like this king, and then there's this army, and then there is this peasantry, and then there's that. So like getting the hang of everything, it's just like,
It'll throw you for a learning curve. It's funny. I've actually worried about that because for me, I mean, gosh, it started for me 8 years ago. No, that can't be right. 2, 3, 4, 7 years ago. That's not much better. It started for me 7 years ago in my head. And so the progression of the lore of the story seems so natural because like, yeah, I've done this for 7 years. I forget that there's people who are either just joining now, which means they have 7 years of whatever craziness happens in here, or they have the 3 years of Crown and Chains, or even the 6 months of Uncaged is like, what's happening? So I've often worried, like, shoot, do I need to like, should I release something that it's like a little booklet, like just a little, I don't know, like a little poster that says this is what's going on here. Here's a little map of what
maybe it
everything
would
is.
be helpful, because not everyone is as lucky as me to have like a very knowledgeable and dedicated Paran to answer
Yes,
all the open questions, because that would
Run is
definitely
one
been
of the
like
OGs.
loving it. But
Yeah.
so for anyone that's like coming new to this whole thing, what would you say are like the must listen songs, or like the things people should look at to kind of dive into this whole story to get the hang of it?
That is a great question. Must listen songs. I would say for like, oh, that's really hard. Okay, I'll just say what my gut says. I would say you got to listen to King Suffering. You got to listen to I'm Burning Everything. You got to listen to Letters. I would say if you're just starting, and if you're concerned about the story, if you're concerned about who we are, if you're concerned about all those things, like if you just want to give us a try and you want to know what's going on with the story, I'd say those three are the meat of the story for the first album, and they're also like three of our, like, stylistically our best songs as well. So I would start there. In terms of like, should I just give a quick overview of what the story even is?
Sure.
Is that helpful?
Go ahead.
Okay. So if you're jumping into our music, there's a storyline you should know about where you have King Suffering, who is this evil cult leader who basically his life's purpose comes from putting people through pain in whatever way it is. And then you have the members of the band who basically fall under his grips. He finds us, he kidnaps us, isolates us, tortures us, and makes us part of his army. And so the king's army is a group of people who he has tortured to the point of brainwashing, and they basically go and recruit more people to bring into his army, torture them, make them part of it. So you have this weird like torture pyramid scheme type thing going on with King Suffering. And me and the other band members are the first people who have ever escaped King Suffering's army. We've broken free from his control. And when we did that, we made it our life's purpose to free others from that control as well. And so we have started basically like a counter cult called the Peasantry. And we rise against King Suffering with them is like the basic summary of the storyline.
I think a good like video that also shows that is I'm Burning Everything.
Yes, for sure.
I actually rewatched that yesterday, I think. Like I saw the video like when I first came across you, because obviously Paran suggested you last year in September or something, I think. So like ages ago.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, after she showed me some of your songs, I kind of forgot about you. Then I kind of refound you and I listened to I'm Burning Everything. That was like the first song I consciously listened to.
Yeah.
And then I also
And you
watched
put it in a video, didn't you? I think I remember you mentioned
yeah,
us in like a
exactly.
top 10 or something like that.
Yeah, that was like one of my first like music review thingies that I did, and you landed yourself a spot in there.
I
Yeah,
remember. I think literally Paran said, "Hey, I have this friend. She does like YouTube videos and stuff, and she's putting your song in a video." I think I literally remember going, "Yes," like pumping the air. I was like, "Yes."
and then, but after that, I didn't necessarily forget about you, but I didn't listen to you guys as much until that one day you DM'd me. You were like, "Hey, so we have the song out, Hourglass." I don't know if
That's
you
right.
even remember that. And I remember when I listened to it, I was like, it was the perfect headspace because what Hourglass talks about was exactly what was going on in my life at the time. Like this feeling trapped and feeling like the cycle just keeps on going over and over again. Like you just got out, but then it just starts over. So that song just like stuck with me. And then I'm like here talking to you, listening to Crown and Chains, and that's how it happened.
Love it, love it. Yeah, Hourglass is a really special song. Um, I think that song itself is one of my proudest musical achievements, like lyrically, in the way we developed the sound. And it was our first time working with producer Jake Jones, who's amazing. Yeah, that song is just it's a powerhouse for sure. And it was a start. It really was like we built it up as the start of a new era. And I was kind of worried, like, is that even what it's gonna be though? Are people gonna be underwhelmed? And then we started promoting it before we ever heard it. We hear it back, and I was like, oh no, we were totally on on base. This is very different than any of our other music. Like we leveled up, and so it's definitely a really special song. The hype, I think that is the most hype we've ever had, was for that release, and it was really cool to release it for sure.
But that's interesting that you were basically promoting it before actually hearing the final product. Like, how does that happen? Because I'm sure you had some sort of an idea of how it would sound, or did you not at all? You were like, okay, just
Yeah,
go
so
with
we
them.
we played it live before, and we'd already recorded it. We were just waiting for the producer to get it back to us. So I'm a very trying to think how to word this. When I like write a song lyrically, I can tell you almost not, I don't want to say almost exactly how it sounds. I can tell you roughly where it's going. Um, and even when I'm working with Jacob to craft the melody or the sound for a Crown and Chains project, the way we start every song is I'll walk in with lyrics and he'll say, give me 3 adjectives. And so like, for example, for King Suffering Part 2, just because I don't remember what I've said for any other song, but I remember for that one. For King Suffering Part 2, I said ethereal, spooky, and longing or yearning were the 3 words I gave him. And then we that's where we started, was those 3 words. We built the melody. And then for the rap section on King Suffering Part 2, I basically sent him, the other thing I'll do is I did it for both sections of that song. I sent him 3 songs. I said, these hit the vibe. Do not copy their melodies because that's illegal, but these hit the vibe. So listen to these to get yourself in the right headspace. And so for Hourglass, I knew the tone I wanted to hit. I knew when I wrote the lyrics, I knew I wanted the symmetry of the melodies. It's really cool to look at the song as a sound wave. I don't know if you can even do that, but in the studio when we recorded it and you look at the wave, because it starts small and then it gets bigger and then it gets smaller again, it forms an hourglass, like as a
No,
sound
really?
wave,
That's
which was
it.
always part of the vision, to get it to, you make it bigger, you get it smaller, you get it bigger. And the song, like to its basic core, which is the waves of sound that we can't see because we're humans, we can't see that, but the waves of sound form an hourglass as they come at you, which means you literally have an hourglass in your head every time you listen.
That's
Um,
so cool.
so
That's
it's
so
it's one of those things where we were promoting the song and I knew I knew what it was going to sound like. I genuinely did not that sounds bad. I didn't know what to expect in terms of how good it would sound.
You
We'd
thought it
never
was
worked with
legit.
Jake. It was just a new process. You never know. And so we were blown away when we finally had the song. It was like, this has potential to really be something cool. So
And I mean, it is really cool.
yeah,
So
I would agree.
definitely.
That's not me.
But like with King Suffering Part 2, which obviously came out after that, were you like a little more chill about that one because you were like, okay, we kind of got this new era going, like this is gonna fit in nicely with like Hourglass, like but also remind of our old self, but be something new? Was that more chill, or was it also like a nerve-wracking situation?
That one was nerve-wracking for a different reason. Hourglass had a lot of nerves around it just because it was. Sorry, by the way, I'm sitting on the floor. I don't know why, but
Me
I've
too.
done it. Are you really
Yeah.
on the floor?
Yeah.
Oh, I cannot tell. That's really okay. We're just we're just vibing then. It's cool. It's cool. Oh, what was the question?
Oh my
I
god.
genuinely don't. Oh. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Stress level over the songs. Hourglass was like, it was new everything. It was new producer, new sound. We'd never. I mean, it almost gets like club level, like Hourglass. Like we'd never done that type of stuff.
Right.
And so it was all new. For King Suffering Part 2, I think my biggest concerns were that it was the most lore heavy song we'd ever released, which to me I was worried that was going to make it less relatable. I was worried first time listeners are going to be like, what the F is happening, which they probably are. I just stopped caring, which maybe that's the wrong answer, but like, you have access, you can catch up if you like the sound enough and learn what it means. But it was also just it's like it's deeply personal song, and I guess I hadn't really released a deeply personal song like that in a little while, and so there was all these little things going into it where I was really confident the sound was going to be good. I was really confident in the song that we made and in everything, but it's nerve-wracking the more personal a song is to release something like that. It goes out in the world and suddenly anyone who cares enough or wants to has access to some of the deepest parts of who I am as a person and what I've been through. And on top of that, like I wrote the song 2 years ago, and so there's this. I'm trying to figure out how to describe this to people who don't release music the way I do. For me, releasing music is releasing an emotion that I've held on to. And so like I remember when I released the King Suffering album, I literally had an anxiety attack that day.
Oh.
Like for hours sobbing on like a full anxiety attack, because I was about to become highly accessible, like in terms of my emotions, to every person I've ever known. And every person I've ever known was going to listen to this album. The strangers I didn't care as much about, but every person I knew was going to know my life, right?
Because you were gonna understand it and see like bits and pieces of like you and your life and the songs, be like, holy shit, like that's what was going on in his head.
Yeah, and it was terrifying. But then I remember I was super anxious, and then it dropped. And I think the moment it dropped, my anxiety peaked for like 5 minutes, and then like all of a sudden there was just this. It's gone. It's done.
Wow.
This weird. I mean, it's almost like the eye of a hurricane. Like it was crazy. It was noise. It was chaos. My head and my heart were racing, going crazy, and all of a sudden it was just like, but it's I'm free. It's like when you release something into the world like that, it allowed me. It was like throwing something off of me, like taking a piece of myself and removing it and throwing it into the world.
Mhm.
There's a weight that comes off, and so I think I've been holding on to what I said in King Suffering Part 2 for so long that releasing it to me was, amidst all the stress and stuff, the anticipation and what I felt afterwards was I finally can let go of this dark piece of me in a way.
Yeah.
And so it was really freeing. It's always a really freeing experience, but I think with Crown and Chains especially, there's when I release a song with them over all my other projects, there's this longevity to it. There's this fact that that project literally made me who I am today. That I wouldn't be an artist without the songs I wrote for that band. I wouldn't really, I don't know if I would have survived the stuff I went through if I hadn't been writing the songs I wrote for that band. You know, it's so deeply ingrained into who I am that releasing anything from Crown and Chains is a monumental moment in my life as well. It's not just another release for me. So every release feels, there's the anticipation, there's the bigness, even if I don't promote it as heavily or build up the hype as much. To me, I'm throwing honestly the deepest part of who I am into the universe and saying goodbye to it.
That's just like such a beautiful thing about like music or like art in general, is this kind of vulnerability and this sharing of really giving. It's a piece of yourself you're giving.
Yeah, it totally is.
And like allowing people into your world, and especially for you that you've really built this like incredible story behind it as well, which is both like highly metaphorical, but at the same time it is super relatable. And I think like the more you look into it, and always when you revisit songs, you'll always find something new, also depending on like, I feel like the mood you're listening to them, like the mood you're in yourself.
Yeah.
And especially for like King Suffering Part 2, a lot, I think, I mean, people were like, oh my God, it's going to be like about the king. Are we going to find out like who he is? And it's kind of all revealed. So it must have also, for those people that have been following you for a longer time, that one must have been like a little mind blown moment.
Yeah. And it was, it was funny. The band was so worried I was going to just leak that information for some reason. The band was so worried that I was just going to like come out and say who King Suffering was. And so for that, they were all like, I think literally Tyler and Jacob both texted me on release day, like, congratulations for not ruining our music. I didn't say it until it released. I was like,
they were probably like, we should lock him into a room.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like that. So there was a weight off my chest because I didn't have to worry about saying it anymore. And, you know, we've teased it. We teased it in we teased a lot in that I'm Burning Everything music video. But you know, you can tell a little bit what's going on there. And, you know, even though we've revealed a very key piece of who King Suffering is, I would say there's this philosophy I have. And it's a philosophy I get from horror movies. Do you watch horror movies?
I hate horror movies so much. Okay. I despise them. I can't watch at all.
There's a thing with horror movies, and there's something that makes a really good horror movie. The thing that makes a great horror movie is when they don't tell you about the villain or whatever the being is. The scariest things in horror movies are what you don't know. It's the reason we don't like going in the dark. We feel stressed in the dark because we don't know what's around us, right?
Yeah.
And so I approach whatever's supposed to give you tension in my storylines, I approach the same way. If there's an evil character, if there's something going on in the world that's supposed to make you feel eerie or unsure or you're tense, I'm going to tell you as little about that thing as I can, because we're not afraid of what we understand. The second you know enough about something, it's not scary anymore. And so what I hope to do with King Suffering, and what I'm doing with King Suffering is, as I reveal pieces to you, I'm going to present other questions. And I'm going to take you deeper into who the character is while making you realize, oh, there's more I still don't know. And so you may know part of who King Suffering is, but there is a lot that you won't know for a very long time. Oh. So I'll just word it that way.
We basically have like this 20-year master plan that like in 20 years we might have almost all the questions answered.
I can confirm that I do have a plan that goes, it's not 20 years. I do have a 5-year lore plan for Crown and Chains.
5 years. That's pretty impressive. I mean, that means it's, so basically you just guaranteed everybody that is like a fan of Crown and Chains that you will be releasing music for at least 5
so
years.
here's what it comes down to, because you never know the future, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
of
it could
course.
be that you never know what happens. I will say this, and this is, I'm when I say this hypothetically, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I do not think it will. I hope it doesn't. But the worst case scenario being Crown and Chains breaks up before I'm able to release this content, right? I can promise you that no matter what happens in the world or the universe, you will know everything someday. I do plan on, no matter what the future holds, I will stay with the Crown and Chain storyline. I will stay with the peasantry, and I will reveal more about this lore, because it is the most important art I've ever created, and I strongly believe in it so much. So no matter what happens, the peasantry, fans of the storyline of whatever, can rest assured that they will never, well, I don't want to say never stop getting content. There will every question they have and ever will have will someday be answered.
Well, that's
I can
good.
say
Well, I hope you've made some people very happy with that statement right now.
I hope
Maybe
so too. I
some
hope they're not
people
like
let down,
more.
breathe. Or you probably just gave everyone a brief anxiety attack, but at least like you gave them a
I
breather.
can tell you. Let me just clarify. Crowded Chains is in no way, shape, or form talking about breaking up. It's not on the table. Not on the table.
How
And
about
if either of the two other guys try, I will handcuff them to my table and leave them there and force them to write music with me. So it's not happening.
you will force them to reconsider?
Yes, exactly.
But let's say everything goes well, as we will just say it will, because we are optimistic human beings.
Yes.
How do you see Crown and Chains progressing in the future? Also, maybe in the time where gigs will be allowed to happen again.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for that. Let me tell you, I've missed gigs so much. So progressing in terms of like, where do we see ourselves in
Yeah,
maybe?
where are you heading towards?
Um, I have a really unsatisfactory answer to this question every time I'm asked. Am I allowed to use it still, even though it's unsatisfactory?
I guess so, because I won't get another answer. So I'd rather have an answer than no answer at all.
I always say that I don't know and I don't care. Which no one likes that answer. That's not what you want. You want to hear me say we're playing Madison Square Garden, that's what you want. That's what everyone wants the answer to be. But I genuinely, that's not my focus. I obviously, what would I love? I would love to play Madison Square Garden. I would love to tour the world, take the music to every single person who's got us to where we are today. And I would love for there to be a bunch more of you. That would be wicked. But every time that my focus becomes oriented towards the numbers, oriented towards trying to play a certain place, trying to grow the popularity of the band, I lose sight of why I started. And really, I started to impact people. I would love to impact as many people as I can. That would be amazing. But as long as I am impacting someone, I'm content. There could be literally one person listening to us for the rest of our career, and I would work just as hard and put out just as much content. And so I would love for us to blow up. I would love for us to be able to. I mean, the ideas I have for a stage show where we actually have a budget would blow minds. I have a lot of really exciting things I would love to execute on a tour. But that's not really what our focus is. The music first and foremost. And as long as there's people listening and they're deriving meaning and purpose from what we're saying, then I don't care how many they are or where we're at. We'll just release the content.
You know what? I did not hate that answer at all.
I feel like people just want us to say like, oh, we'll be blowing up. So hop on the train now.
I actually really like your answer a lot more, because it touches on something that a lot of people don't keep in mind, which is how powerful a why is. Like always knowing your why, because that is what will keep you moving forward. Like if everything seems like there is a chaos or things don't seem like they are going anywhere, as long as you have your why, you will always be able to move forward, and you will always be like content with what is. You will be able to stay in the moment.
Yeah. I can't respond to that because I'm gonna spoil something that I can't talk about because you just.
Oh,
Let me tell let me tell you something.
This close.
In like, what day is today?
I think it's a Saturday, and it's the
Okay.
7th November.
I cannot tell you when. I won't even tell you what project. But there is something releasing very soon that is literally 100% about everything you just said.
I can see the future.
And I expect you to DM me when you listen to it, because I think you'll realize that there is literally, I say the exact words you just said at one
No.
point in the project.
At the front door. No.
So
What?
yeah.
Oh my God, I'm excited now.
So keep an eye out for that.
I shall definitely do that.
Yeah, you just touched on literally something I've been working on for quite some time. So
Exciting stuff. But moving on from one exciting thing to the other,
Yes.
how about we move on from Crown and Chains to another very exciting project of yours? I mean, you also have your solo stuff, and you mentioned 2 of those earlier, which is Seasons and Uncaged.
Yes.
Give us some insight into Seasons first, because Seasons is first. That was a lot of first in the sentence.
I have kept this project very secret, in the sense where I have shown you only the tip of the iceberg of what this is, and I think I'm just gonna tell everyone what it is on your. Is that okay? If I
yeah. Feel free to.
I'm gonna announce something that I really didn't plan on announcing, but I've been dying to, and I think it's time.
I kinda like